Welcome to Sakshi TV special immigration talk show with attorney Ms. Prashanthi Reddy. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 4 immigration shows every week. On Tuesdays with Mr. Kaveti, on Wednesdays with Prashanthi Reddy in English, on Thursdays with Chand Parvat Neni, and on Fridays with Banu Nindra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call us at 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for the use of information. If you need any specific legal advice, you can definitely contact the attorney directly. Ms. Prashanthi Reddy needs no introduction, but if you need consultation, you can definitely log on to their law firm, which is www.reddyesq.com. They provide you with wealth of free information and online tools for the US community. So without any further delay, let's welcome Ms. Reddy onto our show. Ms. Reddy, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back, Andy. How are you feeling?
Doing good, Andy. Hope you're doing well as well. It's been quite some time, so eager to get on with the show.
Yes. So, Ms. Reddy Garu, today we decided we will talk a little about do's and don'ts for the F1 visa students. Before we do we have any latest immigration updates, or do you want me to start up with the topic?
We'll start off with the do's and don'ts.
Yes. So let's go with the topic. Reddy Garu, firstly, I think it'll be better if you just give a basic introduction about F1 visa. Then I can, ask you questions one by one.
Right. So let's go through the do's and don'ts for international students. And I have about 10 do's and don'ts just to keep it at an even number. There are many more, but in the interest of time, I'll go through all 10 points and we can discuss about them, and then we can go through some cap related questions if we have time. So point number 1, as an F1 student, and also the reason that we're having this program now is because a lot of students have just come in, started the fall semester, so we have a lot of international students who are new to the country, who just come in maybe a month ago and have just started their program. So it's important for them to have all the information that they need to succeed in the US and not to get into trouble. So point number 1, you have to know the difference between a visa and permission to stay. So your visa is issued by the Department of State, and it's stamped in your passport. And the visa allows you to travel to the US as an F1 student. But your status here, or the period of your stay, or rather how long you can stay, is determined by your I-94, not your visa. So you might have a 10-year multiple entry visa, but you may be able to stay only for a month. If at CBP, at the border, when you're entering, they give you only 1 month period of stay. So it's important when you enter the US, and since you've already entered now, presuming that you're already a student, you go to your I-94 website. You go to the USCIS I-94 website, type in your passport number and your name, and then it will give you a copy of your I-94 card and all your travel details as to when you entered, and if you exited, when you exited, and so your entire travel history. And it will also show you as to how long you can stay in the US. So you have to follow that always as soon as you come into the country. So make sure you always look at that. For students, it's mostly DS, which will be on their I-94, which is duration of status, which pretty much means that as long as you are maintaining your status as a full-time student, you continue to be in status. That's unique for students. For example, a person coming on a visitor's visa will have a date by which they need to return. It will say an exact date. Usually it could be 1 month or 3 months or 6 months. So for a student, it's DS. So just make sure if you're on change from a student visa to a H1, then it'll again have a date on it. It'll be the duration of the H1 approval most probably, or sometimes even a lesser duration. That's why it's important to always look at that I-94 record. And the other reason why it's important to look at it is sometimes When you're a student, you should get DS, but instead maybe they'll make a mistake and they'll put a date. So in which case you'll have to approach CBP and ask them to change it. Or they may have made a mistake with your date of entry, or they may have made a mistake with the spelling of your name or the name itself. So you have to make sure that there are no typographical errors in your I-94. And if they are, then you need to approach, call CBP, take an appointment, and go and get it corrected. Point number 2, always update your address with USCIS. So as a student, if you came on a certain address, which is mentioned in your I-20, and after that, if you move your address, make sure you fill out an AR-11. An AR-11 is available online on the USCIS website, and it's very simple to fill out. So you should fill it out and submit it, and keep a record of or a copy of what you submitted. It's important USCIS at all given times knows what your address is. Point number 3, maintain your status. This goes without saying, but sometimes it's difficult. It's not clear as to how you maintain your status or what you do sometimes which makes you go out of status. So number 1, to be in full-time status, you have to be full-time. You have to be a full-time student. You have to be taking a certain number of courses. Most schools, it's at least 12 credits. You have to check with your school what is the number of credits you need to take to be a full-time student. Another issue with maintaining status is sometimes when you're taking online classes. Now, while US citizens, permanent residents, people who are not on an F1 status can take online classes, and often your college may offer online classes, you may not be able to take them. So be careful, speak with your DSO to find out how many online classes you can take. It's usually only one online class that you can take, 3 credits. Sometimes if your college has taken permission from USCIS, it's possible that you can take, it's possible they may have a hybrid curriculum where you're taking online classes as well as in-person classes. So that's something to keep in mind in order to know, in order to maintain your status. Okay. And another thing, CPT. Taking CPT. Is it okay to take CPT? Is it not okay? Is it okay to take day 1 CPT? These are often questions that students have, and this reflects on their status because if they sometimes take day 1 CPT and then they try to file a H1, a change of status to a H1, USCIS might send an RFE asking if they maintain status, and again asking about that day 1 CPT, and sometimes they may deny that change of status and they may say that you have not maintained status. So be careful of that. If you're taking CPT, make sure your school has a requirement that you take CPT. Make sure that the school has a requirement that allows you to or requires you to take to work, and as well as work in order to get credits, almost like a complement to your in-class lessons. So that's called a hybrid system. So some colleges allow that. So make sure your college does. Beware of fraudulent colleges. We've had that over the years. Tri-Valley University, Northwest, Northern Virginia, I believe it was called. And then recently, Farmington University, we had that issue where FBI actually posed as a university, and there was no university and there were no classes being held. So be careful. If the university is telling you you don't have to come in for classes, you know that there's something wrong there. If the university is not operating properly as a university, don't think you can bury your head in the sand and think nothing will happen to you. It is your responsibility as well to maintain your status and to do everything you're supposed to do as a student. So if something seems wrong, then you know that there's something wrong with the university, and you might want to then transfer university or ask the appropriate questions. So these are some of the ways that you maintain your status or the ways that you're likely to go out of status. So just be aware, keep it in mind. Now, there are other things that you should be aware of which have immigration consequences, which is breaking the law. Obviously, nobody should break the law. But if you are a student, the repercussions of breaking the law is much more than if you're not, if you're an international student. Because on top of having to deal with the crime that you've committed and having to deal with that and going to jail and or facing some kind of a sentence or fine, you also have immigration consequences. So if you've committed a felony or more than one misdemeanor, or whatever it might be, you will be removable from this country. So not only will the cops catch you, then ICE will take you and detain you and send you back to your country, and then you would have wasted your, all the fees that you've paid in this country, and you'd have to start all over again, with your program. So first thing is, don't use fake IDs. I know a lot of students, especially in undergrad, will have fake IDs and try to use them, etc., to buy alcohol or whatever it might be. That is a crime, so you don't want to do that. Don't use drugs, even when you're using for marijuana, for example. It's very confusing because the states, especially if you're in New York and California, Chicago, a lot of states, 20 plus states, allow using marijuana. So smoking of marijuana is legal in a lot of states. So you may think it's okay for you to smoke it. But please remember, there's a dichotomy there, because as per federal law, it is still a crime. So if you're caught smoking pot, then it is substance abuse. Even if you're in possession of a small amount of it, you are in trouble. It's a drug offense, and it's very difficult after that for anything to be done or any waiver to be filed, and there are very few exceptions to a drug offense, so don't do it. Now, again, same thing, it applies to alcohol. Well, if you're over 21, you can drink alcohol, but you cannot cause a public disruption. So if you're drinking alcohol and then making a nuisance of yourself, that could be a misdemeanor or a felony as well. So be careful when you're doing either of these things, because they can have criminal consequences and then immigration consequences as well. Point number 6. Don't work without work authorization. This is obvious to every one of you, but a lot of you do just ignore this. And you think that it's fine because your friend, your roommate has done it. It's okay for you to do it. They didn't caught, so you won't get caught. No one gets caught. Somebody has to get caught, right? So until you get caught, you think that nothing will happen to you. So there have been a lot of instances as an attorney, I can tell you, where students have been caught and have been removed. Or recently there was an incident when a person was actually coming on a H1. That means that he was a student and then he moved to a H1 and he has been working. And he was traveling to India, came back to the US, and they checked his phone records and found some pay stubs or something indicating that he was working at a gas station while he was a student. So 2 points here. One is, don't work while you're on F1, because that can have, again, serious consequences. Now, this person was removed, was not allowed into the country, and he's been outside the country. We filed a waiver for him, but the waiver was not approved at the council. They even refused to look at it, and they wouldn't give him a visa to come back again. His spouse is here, he's there, so it's a horrible situation to be in.
Yes. Ms. Reddy, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I think looks like we have a caller today. Hello, you can ask your question to Ms. Reddy right now.
Hi, my name is Karthik. I would like to ask Prashanthi ma'am regarding nowadays most of the students, I don't know if you are aware of the recent issue that's happening in Dallas. Some of the few guys in the apartment has been in a fight and asked for the victim of that has been asking for asylum. I don't know, like, could we shed some light to the new upcoming students, like, as a part of this topic, not to have that kind of improper behavior at the apartments or in the complex?
So
could
no,
you
I'm
explain?
glad
I
you
don't.
brought it to my attention. So what has happened? So in Dallas, someone was behaving badly in an apartment complex and they complained?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So that could be again disorderly conduct, and a lot of students I know room together and they party, and which is good. You should do whatever makes you happy, as long as you don't break the law and make a nuisance of yourself. So that's definitely a problem. That will be disorderly conduct, and it could be a misdemeanor or it could be a felony. You want to avoid. And if there is underage drinking in the apartment, that's another problem. If there's someone in the apartment who's not maintaining status, then the scrutiny tends to be on everyone. So thank you for that question. And that's a good reminder for us that, you guys are not invincible. You can get into trouble. So please be careful with what you do while you're in the US. You're here to study and get a good job and make a career. So be prudent in whatever you're doing. So going
Yes,
back to
thank you.
you're
Yes,
welcome, Shivani.
yeah,
So
yeah.
going
I know.
back to yeah.
I just wanted to thank Karthik for asking that question. Thank you again, caller, for tuning in. Yes, Ms. Reddy, you can please continue.
Going back to the don't work without work authorization. So that student, that person who was a student and then even changed the status to a H1 could not, even after so many years, got caught. And we're still trying to get him back, but not having much success because the counselor doesn't want to look at such cases.
Yes.
So be careful. Don't work without authority.
Sorry again, but I think there's another caller, and I just don't want, I think this person has been, asking again and again. Yes, Andy, maybe you can ask your question to Ms. Reddy. Hello. Okay, we can get back to them again. Yes, Ms. Reddy, you can continue. I'm not going to bother you.
No, please. If you have any callers, they take first priority. But point number 7, if you do get into trouble, sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes it's not your fault. You're standing next to someone who gets into trouble and you get pulled in. But if you do get into trouble, don't try and settle this by yourself, by talking to the DA, whatever, because there are consequences that you have to face, which might not be apparent to you. So, for example, you might say have a DUI, you're drinking under the influence, or DWI, drinking while intoxicated, and you might get arrested by the cops, and you might decide to go before the judge yourself, and the judge might say, okay, pay a fine, and you can go. So don't plead guilty, don't go without an attorney, because even though you don't have jail time, the fact that you have pled guilty to a DWI or a DUI or any such similar, I'm just giving an example, it could be something else, has immigration consequences. It may not have jail time for you, and you may be happy that you got off with a fine, but it has immigration consequences. Because once that has happened, and once you have a DWI, then every time you travel, you will be flagged. You may not be allowed to enter in. When you file a green card, you have to disclose all your arrests. And if you are convicted of anything, and DWI, for example, is also a crime against moral turpitude. It's called a crime against moral turpitude. And such crimes have consequences, because when you have to file a waiver, you should be able to eligible to file a waiver. Not everyone is. You should have US citizen immediate relatives to do that. So be very careful. If you get into trouble, hire a criminal attorney, hire an immigration attorney, both. And make sure the immigration attorney is in the loop when your criminal attorney is asking for a certain plea or is agreeing to a certain conviction. Okay, sometimes even if you're not convicted and you're not fined, you might have a deferred sentence, which means that community service or something like that, and they ask you to come in and check in with them, and then after a while they remove, they let you go. So that's community service, but that is still a conviction and it's still an arrest and still a problem. So point number 8, OPT, optional practical training. I suggest everyone make use of this OPT, both your post-completion OPT, which is for 1 year, as well as if you're in a STEM program, then your STEM OPT, which is for 2 years. The reason OPT is great is because unlike the H1, it doesn't have so many restrictions. You don't have a certain prevailing wage that has to be paid. You don't have to notify USCIS every time you move jobs. Of course, you might have to notify your DSO, but you don't have to file a petition with USCIS. So it's much simpler to work on OPT, and it's time given to you. So my suggestion is to take up that OPT, but keep in mind that there is a deadline to file for OPT. You can file 90 days before your course is expiring, or up to 60 days after. So you have a 60 days grace period within which, after your course is over, that you can file OPT. Make sure when you're filing for that I-765, the EAD card, you put in the right checks, you sign everything, send it to the right address, or again, use your DSO, use an immigration attorney to do it or to review it, because there's so many instances when it was sent out on time, but there was some mistake, and by the time USCIS returned it, that 60 days grace period is over, and they lost the opportunity of being on that OPT. You only get that opportunity once, so please be careful when you're filing it. Point number 9. It's important to stay informed about all immigration policies as to what can be done, what can't be done, what online classes you have to take, how many credits you have to maintain, what you need to do during cap gap, that is when you're filing for a change of status, what you need to do when you transfer schools, what CVIS needs to be updated. When you're traveling, do you need to inform your DSO that you're traveling, and do you need to get a travel I-20? All this information is available online. I suggest that you go through the ice.gov CVIS/students website. That's www.ice.gov/CVIS/students. That's a great website resource to go to, where you can get all your information as to what you can do and what you cannot. Also, if you want information as how you can work as a student in the US, you go to uscis.gov, working in the United States/students and exchange visitors. So you just go there and type in working in the United States, go to USCIS website. You should get tons of information on how you can work in the US as a student or after you finish your course. So last is number 10, which we kind of covered. Online classes, are they allowed or not? This is complicated because USCIS went back and forth on this. During COVID, they allowed complete online classes for a period of time. Traditionally, only one online course was always allowed, and now they are back to the traditional format, but apparently there are some exceptions for some colleges. If they have applied for the hybrid method of education and CVIS has approved it, ICE has approved it, then it's possible to take courses both online and in person. So it's important to make sure that again, you have all the information in place and that your school is authorized to do whatever they're doing. Another great website to go to is there's some FAQs for SEVP stakeholders about COVID-19. This is We'll tell you about online courses post-COVID, whether this can be done or not. Just type in that message, FAQs for SEVP stakeholders about COVID-19. It's on the ice.gov website. If you type that in, you'll get to a PDF. That'll give you all the information that you require. That I'm done, Shivani, with our 10 points.
Yes. Ms. Reddy, I think the time is also up. We can definitely continue gap FAQs later on. But if you want, you can just give a basic 1 minute introduction about what is gap if you're fine with it.
Right, sure. So yeah, we just have a few minutes, so we can't go into the gap questions that we got. But just an introduction on what is gap. So when an employer files a H1 with the USCIS during the gap, they are allowed to file 6 months ahead. So they're usually filing in April for a start date of October. So when a student does this, the student might be in status as of the date of filing on April 1st, but they may not be able to maintain their status until October 1st because things changed. Courses might have gotten completed, EAD might have expired. So then they have to leave the country and then come back on a H1 because the change of status portion of the F1 to H1 will not be approved. So in order to find a solution to this problem, USCIS created this gap rule, whereby they say that whatever status you are in as of the date of filing the H1, that status will continue until October 1st, the start date of your H1. And in order to get this, so for example, if you are on EAD and your EAD is set to expire in June, your EAD continues until October 1st.
Yep.
Through the gap rule.
Yes.
And this is
yeah.
Sorry.
I think
sorry.
Okay,
because sounds good. Sounds
because
good.
it's already kind of late, but again, let's continue this next week, Ms. Reddy. Thank you so much again. You're so sweet for tuning in again. Thank you for the viewers for tuning in and also the callers. You're watching Sakshi TV with me, Shivani Raj.